I feel it in my bones, even when I move.
As of today, we are only 8 days until the start of the 2020 to 2021 NBA season. For teams that went on deep playoff runs in the bubble, this will be the shortest offseason in recent memory. Then there are other teams that did not meet the requirements to enter the NBA bubble, so they haven't played meaningful, organized NBA basketball since March. During this shortened season, the NBA draft and the start of free agency happened within 2 days of each other, and during that span of time, trades were being formally agreed upon and conducted. So it feels like the makeup of teams throughout the league seemingly shifted overnight. Throughout the month of December, I will be previewing every NBA team before the first games on December 22nd, meaning I will be posting every day until the season kicks off. 30 teams in 21 days. The preseason preview series. Our next team is the San Antonio Spurs. Last season, the Spurs went 32-39, putting them at 11th in the Western Conference, thus having them miss the playoffs. Their top performers were DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. Their more interesting player is their young prospect DeJounte Murray. Last year, DeRozan put up 22 points per game, about 5.5 assists per game, 5.5 rebounds per game on 53% from the field. Apparently, according to ESPN, this is not a top 80 player in the league. DeMar DeRozan is a great shot creator. He posted above 40% field goal percentages at all areas in the mid-range. He's a great finisher, shooting 73.1% from the field at 0 to 3 feet. And he's a good playmaker. Getting 5.5 assists puts him at one of the best playmaking wings in the entire league, and he's really improved as a playmaker in his time at San Antonio. He probably always had this playmaking ability, but when he was playing in Toronto, it probably wasn't really needed that much playing with Kyle Lowry. But in San Antonio, where there wasn't ever really an elite playmaking point guard, his playmaking became a lot more vital. DeRozan is an average to below average defender. I recognize that. And he is a floor clogger because he does not have a 3-point shot and he doesn't even shoot it. So he's a non-threat from out there. Marcus Aldridge put up 19 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 1.5 blocks per game on 49% from the field and 39% from 3 on 3 attempts per game. Over the past couple of decades, LaMarcus Aldridge has been one of the best post-up players in our league. As of today, he's a good post-up player, but he's not the same as he was, but he's still a good post-up player, and he shoots threes now. Aldridge has always been a player whose range extended out to the mid-range, around the free throw line, around the elbow area, but he's never shot threes. And there's always been indication that he could be a good 3-point shooter because he's always been a good free throw shooter. He's got a mid-range stroke, but he just never shot it. And now he's shooting it, and he's shooting a great percentage on a high clip. 3-point attempts per game is a pretty high volume for a back-to-the-basket big. He's a good post defender. He's smart, savvy, and a big body, but he's subpar in terms of defending pick and rolls because he's never really been that athletic, never really been that quick. And especially now with him getting older and losing even more lateral quickness, he's gonna become an even worse perimeter defender and pick and roll defender and just defender in space. So Aldridge provides no switchability on defense. Last year, DeJounte Murray put up 11 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game, and almost 2 steals per game on 46% from the field and 37% from 3. DeJounte Murray is one of the best young perimeter defenders in our league. I think in his rookie year, he made second team all defense. So he's always had the defensive potential, and he even showed that this year he's pretty disruptive, getting 1.7 steals. His wingspan is crazy, and he's pretty quick on his feet. All of these are things that will make you a great perimeter defender, and he's still improving. He's still young, and he still has some nuanced things to learn that he can learn from veterans and just get from being an experienced NBA player. He's a great rebounding guard. Getting 6 rebounds per game is pretty good for a point guard. Defensively, DeJounte is great and is still improving, but offensively is where he needs the most improvement. He's an average playmaker, mainly because he doesn't have the greatest handle in terms of getting around defenders and operating in the pick and roll, so he doesn't get that many assists per game. He's improving as a shooter. He shot a good percentage at 37% from 3, but it was on a low clip. and he's an improving finisher. This year he shot 59.1% from 0 to 3 feet, which is better than all of his prior years in the NBA, but it's still gotta improve, especially if you're not going to be that much of a threat from three-point land. At least you have to finish well at the rim. So with all that being said, I don't really know what DeJounte Murray's ceiling is. It's only his 4th actual season, even though he's 24, because he got a season-ending injury in his 3rd year, or his I can't remember the exact year it was. DeJounte Murray hasn't been able to play on the court as much as he would like, but he's only 24, so he still has room to grow. I think his ceiling is him being the 4th scoring option on a team, being the best perimeter defender on a team, and being a 3rd or 4th ball handler on the team. But I do think if he can develop some offensive game, then his ceiling could be even higher. And he's on a great contract. He signed his rookie extension, I think, a year ago. It's 4 years, $64 million. $16 million per year for a young prospect who still has some room to grow is a great contract in my opinion, especially in today's NBA. In the offseason, the Spurs made no trades, but they had a lottery pick and they used it on Devin Vassell, who is a 3-and-D wing out of Florida State. Florida State had 2 prospects who were great defensively to go in the lottery in Patrick Williams and Devin Vassell, but Devin Vassell is by far the better 3-point shooter. That's all I know about Devin Vassell, so we'll see how he does in his rookie year. Trey Jones was their other draft pick. He's an experienced point guard. He played 2 years at Duke. I think 2 years. He played with Zion and then a year after that. I've heard that he's great defensively. I've heard that he's one of the best perimeter defending guards in the entire draft class. He's a solid shooter and solid playmaker, so we'll see how Popovich uses him. And in terms of signings, the Spurs didn't really shake up their team too much. So the Spurs depth chart is looking like DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Lonnie Walker, and Trey Jones running their guard positions. At the forward positions, they have DeRozan, Rudy Gay, Keldon Johnson, and Devin Vassell. And at the center positions, they have LaMarcus Aldridge and Jakob Poeltl. And coaching them is Greg Popovich. Projecting into next season, I think their starting lineup will be DeJounte Murray, Derek White, DeRozan, Rudy Gay, and Aldridge. And yeah, this team, I don't think they're going to be good. They're going to go around 30-42. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. I only think the Kings and Oklahoma City Thunder will be behind them in the West. And obviously they're going to miss the playoffs. The Spurs are in a weird spot because I don't really know their direction. Like, are they competing? Because I know the Spurs don't rebuild. They don't tear it down. They always compete regardless of the amount of talent they have. I mean, because they've been competing throughout the entire 2000s. Mainly because they had Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. But even when they were at the end of their prime to after their prime, they were still competing because they found a talent in Kawhi Leonard, who was drafted out of the lottery. I don't think the Spurs are going to try to rebuild because that's just not what they do. And the same people who have been there over the past couple of decades are still there. Greg Popovich, I don't think that's something he would want to do, given that he's still coaching the team. I think he still wants to be competitive, and given that he does have a major front office role, I think he still wants to be competitive, and I don't think he wants to really rebuild. I think we saw that when, in the trade for Kawhi, he got back DeMar DeRozan and 1 first-round pick, when he probably could have got 3 young players from the Lakers and some draft capital. The Spurs opted to get DeMar DeRozan because they wanted to remain competitive. So I think that's an indication that this Spurs team is not rebuilding. So I guess their direction is competing and improving, hopefully. So they probably won't try and trade DeRozan and Aldridge for future draft picks or young assets, like most GMs who are in this Spurs position would probably try to do, and that's something I would try to do if I were doing a My League simulation with them in 2K. But in real life, I don't think the Spurs are going to do that. Even if they wanted to, I think it would be hard to trade them, mainly because DeRozan is not somebody who fits a lot of teams because he's a floor spacing nightmare, and Aldridge might have diminished his value. Even though he added his 3-point shot, he's still pretty old. I think these are both expiring contracts though, so that might save their value in terms of if they were trying to trade them, but again, I don't think think the Spurs are trying to trade their 2 star players. Even though I like DeJounte Murray, I don't think he is a player who has enough potential to be a star that you build around. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of question marks on the San Antonio Spurs team that I don't really have the answer to. The Spurs have never really bottomed out since they drafted Tim Duncan. With Popovich getting older, I think he'd want to continue competing until he retires. I said the Kings were in the worst position in the West, but actually I think it's the Spurs. DeRozan and Aldridge are veteran talents, and DeRozan is still a star caliber player, but in a loaded Western Conference, that duo isn't enough to obtain an 8th seed. The supporting cast isn't too spectacular. DeJounte Murray is a personal favorite young player of mine, but he isn't talented enough to be someone you build around. The same goes with their lottery pick Devin Vassell. It pains me to say this about a legendary franchise with a legendary coach like Greg Popovich, but the Spurs will be one of the more irrelevant teams in the 2020 to 2021 NBA season.
Yeah, I am not slow. Niggas, you want me cause I got the dope. As I can ride on my friend, give me cold. He passed me Humphrey, so they switching roles.